The developers of the best hardcore tactical shooter is being shut down. This is Insurgency Sandstorm. The game was developed by New World Interactive, and there's a fair bit of history behind it. Before we get into NWI's history, let's address what happened to them. On August 13th, 2020, just 2 years after NWI released Insurgency Sandstorm, the Embracer Group acquired New World Interactive and would work along Saber Interactive. While it seemed like this was going to be a great situation for the development team, no new or big announcements were made since then. Just NWI conducting business as usual, with patching and adding content to Sandstorm. Unfortunately, into the evening of December 4th, 2023, Embracer Group had begun to shut down NWI and restructure the staff to fit roles within Saber Interactive, and provide severance packages to anyone else they couldn't keep on board. Embracer Group may not be done with the restructuring, as another dev team, Free Radical Design, is at the risk of closure, and the Embracer Group is also considering to sell off Gearbox Interactive. Not all is lost for the remaining team of NWI, as they would continue to work on an unannounced project and continue supporting Sandstorm directly under Saber Interactive. However, it's never easy to lose developers and the kind of talent NWI had. I do wish the best for everyone who was a part of NWI, and hope they find success in their next job for those who were let go, and success for the remaining crew on their next project. The Insurgency games hold a lot of meaning to me. It was one of the first videos I saw from Total Biscuit, and it defined how I play FPS games to this day. I can't be thankful enough for the ambition and dedication NWI had with their games, even though I didn't see eye to eye with everything they did. That's all the info we know of right now about the situation. However, I also want to go back and discuss the history of NWI and some of the decisions they've made. Before we continue, if you enjoyed this video so far, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more gaming news. Insurgency started out as a mod for Half-Life 2 and was released in 2007. The modding team, and later on NWI, was put together by Jeremy Bloom, who just got off another award-winning mod that was Red Orchestra. A few years after the success of the Insurgency mod, Jeremy officially put together the company, New World Interactive, and in 2014, released a standalone version of Insurgency that was built off the source engine. The game didn't quite catch on at first, but little by little it continued to bring in new players, and with some restructuring of their own, NWI were able to keep the lights on. Since then, they were able to continue development and added new free content over the next 3 years. And while this version was very serviceable, the development team kept running into limitations with the source engine. While the game was slowly stalling out, NWI was also working on another game in the background that was still using the source engine, that game being Day of Infamy, which was released on March 23, 2017. Day of Infamy was NWI's attempt at fitting their unique gameplay into a World War II setting, and it was inspired by an older World War II game of a similar name, Day of Defeat, which was released back in 2005. One neat thing about this project was that the developers had included a portion of Day of Infamy as a mod for Insurgency prior to its release. It was a neat way to have players try out a new theater of war and get a glimpse as to what NWI was working on. Around this time, NWI also included a beta version of a competitive mode for Insurgency. There were already a couple of competitive communities running tournaments for the game, primarily the DGL and ESL leagues. They had their own servers set up with specific loadouts, and the competitive game mode was Firefight. Firefight is a hybrid elimination meets domination mode where everyone has one life, but if a teammate captures one of 3 objectives, any fallen teammates would respawn. This beta test NWI was running for competitive, however, was very lackluster and missing a ton of features. The player classes had different loadouts compared to what the established DGL playlists were offering, and there wasn't any matchmaking. Just a simple leaderboard that tracked players' progress, and a server browser filtered to a specific set of ranked servers. There were also no penalties for leaving mid-match, and a number of other standard features a ranked mode would have. In the end, whoever played the most often would be top of the leaderboard, and since there were already great competitive players dominating the Firefight game mode, it made it difficult for any newcomers to hop in and try things out. And since the game didn't include any proper ranked matchmaking, none of the matches would be remotely balanced. However, this was all just testing for what's to come next in Insurgency Sandstorm. Sandstorm released on December 12, 2018, and the game was built using Unreal Engine 4. This time, the game did have quick play matchmaking available and in ranked mode as well. While Sandstorm did deliver and was a good experience at first, with great sound design, weapon models, and animations, there were a number of gameplay changes that made the game feel strange. Characters had more inertia, turning from side to side felt slower and more weighted, and something about the gunplay felt off compared to the previous game. For a casual experience, it's near perfect. Plenty of action, a lot of different ways to play the game, and the addition of air support that players could occasionally call in. As time went on, the developers were able to nail down the character movement and gunplay, and for a short while, the game was in a good spot. However, things started to change, and certain things just never got addressed. NWI removed competitive ranked matchmaking and focused more on larger player count game modes such as Frontlines. There were also exploits and line of sights on their maps that made it a nightmare to play competitively. I do believe some of these were adjusted to some extent, but not all of them were addressed. Even though they removed rank from the game, NWI would continue to encourage it and showed support for the DGL, who were still running tournaments and open scrims for anyone who would like to join. This meant, however, that if you wanted to have a ranked game mode experience, you would have to join up the DGL Discord and run matches with whoever was available. Again, running into that issue of unbalanced matchmaking. I felt this was a mistake. With no competitive matchmaking built into the game, it once again prevented new players from trying it out and learning how to play the mode against other new players. And anyone who really wanted to try it out would have to take the additional step of joining another Discord. I also fear there was a lack of communication from NWI that made players not really understand the game mode and how it worked. Although the DGL did hold strong for as long as it could, it wasn't growing. Eventually, the DGL had shut down entirely in October of 2021, along with any hope of insurgency growing a competitive audience. It was a shame to see a game like this fail its competitive player base and not provide the tools necessary to gain an audience that could have potentially kept the game relevant. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Sandstorm was a bad game because of this, but clearly from the player count and the gameplay loop it offers, it wasn't keeping players invested and returning often. It's very unfortunate that NWI didn't know how to hold the competitive players' attention. Outside of the competitive scene, Sandstorm is still fun to play. I personally jump back in from time to time to play their co-op mode, but that's about it. Sandstorm had plenty of flaws and issues over the years, but at its core, the gunplay and sound design are unmatched compared to any indie or AA game out there to this day. So if you ever do get a chance to try the game out yourself, I highly recommend you do, and enjoy the hard work, sweat and tears that were put into this flawed yet amazing masterpiece. And now I'm curious, what did Insurgency and NWI mean to you? I met a lot of great people along the way and had great memories of hanging out with others who also enjoyed the game. I know NWI wasn't perfect and really dropped the ball with competitive and a few other things, but I'm still glad they were able to make Sandstorm and show off what they could do. Again, not all is lost as whatever's left of NWI is still working on an unannounced project, but who knows what that is and if it will ever see the light of day. If you want to know more about NWI, there's a 3-part documentary done by the Escapist that I recommend you watch, and I have it linked in the description below. So until then, I am Miss Rain, and I will see you next time.